Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's stream. I was going to play a video game today. That was going to be a thing that I did. And then I was going to do this later in the day, but I wasn't feeling it. All I can think about right now is how excited I am for Verona. It's literally like, it's all I can focus on. I'm all ready for D&D. I'm all ready for Court of Swords, but like, I can't stop thinking about it. Trekkie, welcome back. Thank you. So I'm super hype, and I need to prepare. I need to prepare for the adventure, and I think we got some time. So instead of just doing 2 hours of GM prep, I've scheduled 4 hours today, the next 4 hours, to just kind of like hang out. It's gonna be a little bit low key, and we're just gonna like hang out. We're gonna talk about GM prep. Generally, we're going to talk about GM prep for Stars Without Number, and we're going to actually like walk through like preparing for the first episode. Now, I got to warn you, this may spoil
Welcome to the map.
Yes, everyone, get in here. Thank you so much. This may spoil some stuff.
Our illustrious
and I just mean like it may spoil like little salient plot points. I don't plan on having this game be a mystery game, right? Like I don't want this to be investigatory. We'll talk about the way this interacts with some ideas I have about tabletop RPGs generally and kind of what my plans are.
Have returned.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm just gonna turn the sound down on the notifications so that thank you. I love you. Please keep subscribing. But I don't want to. Yeah, I just don't want to like keep popping up. So you're gonna get a little sneak peek, and that sneak peek might spoil some stuff. And if it does, well, I'm sorry. That's kind of a thing that we do. But I won't make it like I'm gonna save all the like good material for the show, and I don't plan on GMing this like it's a. There's no big twist endings as far as I'm concerned for my prep, especially for the first episode. So let's take a look. I have some notes about what I want to do. And then we can talk about how to make that happen. So these are kind of my goals for today. So my immediate goals for this session are just to like be really clear about what do the PCs do, right? That is so hugely important when starting a new tabletop RPG campaign. Like you can't just throw the players into a game and be like, okay, what happens next? You have to give them an understanding of what is expected of them, like what kinds of stuff happens in this game. So that's important, right? To drop in this idea of like, what are you mandated to do fictionally? What are your characters like about? Like what is the point of this campaign, right? It's to establish. I also want today to establish important pilot episode stuff. So when I talk about pilot episode stuff, I'm thinking not about this as a role-playing game, but I'm thinking about this as a pilot episode of a show, right? Verona as game is one thing, but there's Verona as show, which is another. And Verona as show is a bit different, right? Because I have to impart, not to you, because y'all know, right? Y'all know what the universe is about. You know a bunch of the important stuff. You know who the Blood Eagle was. You know how Cygnus is. You are better informed than both my players and folks who might be coming in from, say, tuning in to drop frames, or who might be wandering in from the D&D tag on Twitch, who might find it on YouTube months down the line and be like, what's happening? What is this? So a pilot episode, the very first episode of the show, right? Episode 1 of Verona, I have to show, not tell, like what to expect, at least from the first little bit, right? Now, I'm not going to be able to predict like everything about the universe. I'm not going to be able to predict like the tone or the themes necessarily. I'm not going to be able to tell you what the whole campaign is, but I have to essentially say like, here you go. Here's some important shit. So I got to figure out, like, what is my important pilot episode stuff? I've got 4 hours to teach my audience what they can expect if they continue to tune into the show. And in a lot of ways, my goal here is to make this first episode exciting and interesting because I want you to come back, right? I want you to tune in again. I want you to get hooked on the universe. If you're not already, I want you to get hooked on the players and their characters in the universe. So there's a lot riding on the first episode. Thankfully, I don't have to worry about like renewal. I don't have to like worry about a studio, right, buying more episodes. We know we're just gonna keep playing. That's sort of one advantage that I have. But I have to think about this and give away that freedom. I have to not think about like, oh, I could just do whatever I want. I have to make it good. I have to make it worth watching. So my goal here for important pilot episode stuff is just to like, yeah, hook you in and provide lots of exciting stuff, right? And to that end, and for the players, when you give them a quick setup to say like, here's where you are, here's what's going on, bang, something happens, immediate action, something to jump into. Because I really don't want to spend the first like couple of hours being like, and then this is the town of Yondersburg, and Yondersburg has 26,000 people in it. 96% of the people that live in Yondersburg are human. 10% are dwarves. 12% of those dwarves are mountain dwarves. Like it's bad. It's terrible. So I want them to have like immediate declarative action so they know exactly what to do. And to that end, today, I need to be sure that I can run the first mission. Now, I'm not making a show. I have 4 full hours, but I still have to think about them in terms of acts, right? So with a role play show, we essentially have 3 acts and an episode kicker, right? So the way that a role play episode is built, we basically have 3 full hours and then 1 half hour, because we do 25 or 30 minutes of just like warm up bullshit. And there's a reason for this. If you've never watched a role play show, usually the way it goes, the pre-show is the first half hour where we just sit down and we're like, hey, what have you been up to in the last week? But with this show, it's like, hey, what have you been up to your whole life? I mean, it's going to be a different conversation between me and Max or me and Anne, but the pre-show is like a 30-minute warm up. And it's not just because we want to know what people have been up to, right? It's not just like, hey, I'm legitimately interested in what you've been doing. It's a way to warm up our voices, right? In case we haven't been streaming all day, this might be the first thing we're doing. It's a way to warm up the conversational stuff. It's a way to get warmed up with each other, right? To kind of get the back and forth going. And it's a way to just kind of like let people in to the audience, right? To like, come on in, sit down. Doesn't matter if you're 10 or 15 minutes late. Like, come on in, sit down, get a drink. We're going to be doing the pre-show for 30 minutes. Okay, we're all warmed up. We know what everybody's been up to. We've all had a chance to talk for 10 or 15 minutes, and let's start the episode. And that's when I'm going to go into the big cinematic. Now, if you watched Swan Song, I do a little bit of this stuff in Court of Swords, but we're going to go back to the very like cinematic descriptors stuff in Far Verona. I'm going to be describing scenes the players are not a part of. I'm going to be doing like establishing shot, title graphics, like get your fucking idea makers ready, because I'm going to be essentially describing a movie or a TV show from my head through my voice parts into your brain. I've been practicing. I've been watching some Netflix shows with the descriptive audio on. So that's my plan, right? Like I'll describe fade-ins, I'll describe fade-outs, I'll describe like, and I'm gonna go a little harder on it than I have been in Court of Swords. Like when I think about Court of Swords, I think Court of Swords is probably like not in my head. It's probably not a TV show. Like sometimes I'll describe stuff, but you'll notice my language isn't very like cinematic. And when I think about it, and I've never really like had this, like I've never really sat down and thought about it. I would think that for the most part, I imagine Court of Swords as being like maybe more a comic, or maybe more of like, yeah, more a novel in the way that I describe, like a manga. Yeah. Nebula Jazz was definitely a movie. And I envision this Far Verona to be more like a TV show, like a very expensive TV show. So yeah, I think that's kind of my plan. This very sort of cinematic style of narrative. I've been thinking about it. Yeah, right. Tomb of Annihilation is a Saturday morning cartoon. Exactly, Mempton. So, yeah. So that's kind of my jam. So today, before we finish today's episode, these are my 4 things. I need to make 100% sure I've got this going. Now I need to at least start on my secondary goals, which is to say, I need to think about the dramatis personae. Now, the dramatis personae we will build over time, right? Like, I mean, okay, maybe we don't know this, but I have to assume that George R.R. Martin didn't sit down to write Game of Thrones and start with like, Marbrand, Adams, Marbrand, Aaron. Like, he didn't start immediately building every single like character and then put them into the world. Like, people got added, and at the end he was like, all right, who did I refer to in this book? Let's lay out all these characters and give you a little bit of description. But for me, I need to start filling out what the dramatis personae is the name for the part of a script or screenplay, usually, or a book, I guess. And it literally just means like people of the dramatic players, right? People of drama. So they are the people who take place in this drama or take part in this drama, and these are the characters. So we've already got 4 people in our dramatis personae, right? We have our characters. We have Max's hard-bitten investigator. We have the plucky young Fornax pilot. We have our indentured servant / cyborg. And we have our Serpent's diplomat. So what I need to do is come up with like the people that will be supporting and existing around those characters. So I don't need this. For me, this is sort of the setting building that I'm going to do, because you know me, right? You know that NPCs are the ways in which I show the setting. So if I want to say something about House Lyra, I'm not going to be like, Game Master voice on, House Lyra is one of the noble houses, yada, yada, yada. I'm going to show it through a character, either a member of House Lyra or someone has a relationship or a feeling about that, right? If I want to show the side of House Lyra that is a little creepy and death-obsessed, I will put a creepy, death-obsessed Lyra house member in the setting. Someone pointed out, interestingly, I think, that I'm doing this a bit differently, right? Someone on the... I think one of the YouTube videos said, doesn't Adam always tell you not to create the whole world and just like build it as you need it? And like, yeah, usually I do, but this is a bit different in that the setting isn't really mine. It's all of ours. And I'm not going to tell you not to like build stuff, right? I'm going to pick and choose the cool things that you build to incorporate them. But the thing that I get to do is the in the moment stuff. And the in the moment stuff for me is strongest when it's expressed through a non-player character, right? I use people to tell stories rather than letting a setting be a thing in and of itself. So what we're going to do is I'm going to think about what the dramatis personae I need to do this stuff, right? This first episode, this first arc. Who do I need to express the stuff that I want, and how can I flesh those people out? And they're going to get added. I'm going to create a new... Actually, I should probably just do that right now. Give me a second. I'm going to make a new document. We're just going to call it Dramatis Personae. And as I build it, this will be, let's see, Dramatis Personae, and this will be the thing that we use. This will be the thing that we use for the whole show, and I'll just keep adding to it. I imagine much of this information will end up on the wiki, so that's a thing. Okay, cool. So there we go. I got a Dramatis Personae, and we will start adding to this file. Yeah, all of these docs will be made available to people who want to look at them later, or at the very least will make their way into the zine. But the Dramatis Personae for sure will be there for all of the hardworking folks who are for doing this. Yeah, and then yeah, relationship maps are something we can build out of that. Wiki team, you're doing God's work. So, okay, all right. So Dramatis Personae is something that I need to start thinking about, and I need to think about like who immediately they will need to interact with. Also, Dramatis Personae is not just people. For me, Dramatis Personae is going to include spaceships, because spaceships in a sci-fi game can be very important. And while like what was the name a single spaceship from Dune? right? You can't. But in other media that I'm being inspired by, like Collapsing Empire, or like Nine Fox Gambit, both of those have very sort of personal spaceship names. So there's absolutely going to be some like named ships. That stuff's going to be super important. So we'll think about that, and we'll add those in. Yeah. So I want to think a little bit about, and maybe make some initial notes about what I envision to be the themes of the first season, right? The kinds of things about the things about the universe that I am caring about. If you're used to watching me GM or talk about Burning Wheel, this is the situation, right? So we need to talk about the situation. I'm actually going to like specify that here because that'll help me. So the situation in Burning Wheel is like the creative prep that the GM brings to the table. This is the prompt saying, players, this is what this campaign is currently about. This is what you can kind of expect. This is my responsibility as the game master. I don't get to say how they respond to it, but I get to drop them in and say like, this is what you can expect. And then to that end, I'm going to think about kind of like what stuff I want to build up around that and how that's going to lead into future episode. And then think about what comes after. So today I really need to be sure of the where, what, and who for right now, right? Like, where are they? What's going on? Who's there? Done, right? I need to start thinking about what comes later. So I need to think about why. Like, why is this stuff happening? What's going on? I don't need to have a full answer, but I need to at least brainstorm a little bit of this. And then for the additional stuff, I want to talk a little bit about some of my inspirations, right? Obviously, there are some other games that we could look at. There are some other games like the very premise for this came weeks ago when we started talking about, remember in one of the pre-show streams, I think maybe the very first one we did, I was like, oh, it would be really cool if they were a House Crux ship traveling around kind of like making sure people didn't break the law. So there's a lot of different ways we could do that. And it was inspired originally by some stuff in Dogs in the Vineyard. So I'm going to think about kind of what Dogs has to offer and what I can kind of pull in from there, but also like what I don't want to copy wholesale, right? Because I understand that Dogs is about some very, very specific stuff. It's not just about authority. It's about authority within community. It's about being a teenager. It's about not having anyone to report to. It's more complicated than simply just like ripping it off and dumping it into this. So we can't steal wholesale from Dogs, but we can talk a little bit about what Dogs as a game has to offer. And to that end, too, we need to talk about the types of campaign, right? By default, Stars Without Number is a sandbox game. So I need to talk about what that means, right? Like, what is a sandbox game? What kinds of things are part of that game? Because even Swan Song, which was definitely a sandbox game, started off quite sandboxy and got narrower and narrower, which I think is what happens, right? You're given an infinite, you're given a vast space to be creative in. Eventually you figure the thing out that you actually want to be doing, which is to say, fighting the war mind and exploring what it means to be human, like have intelligence, those themes. And that is what the players focus on versus GM driven, like more traditional game master player relationships in role-playing games where I say, this is what's going on. This is the game. This is what you're doing. And watching that narrative structure flow in the sense of like this being a show. And the absolute worst thing I could possibly do is just drop them into the universe and say, okay, what you got a spaceship, what do you want to do? Like that would kill all the momentum. So I really do this pilot episode is going to feel a little bit more like you're here. This is your mission. This is what's going on. Here's the complication. Do what you got to do, right? Put short-term goals directly in front of them. And then once they've gotten warmed up on the premise and the idea, then we can give them some space to do some other stuff, right? It's like yes, the game is a sandbox, but I think I kind of have to put them in a specific corner of the sandbox and say, here is what to do right now. And when you're done with that, then you can leave your focus cone. Exactly. You can leave that focus cone and go out and do other things. And this might be big, this might be small, right? This might be like, we've talked about the shape of narratives, right? We've talked about how a narrative can be it can be cone shaped, it can be diamond shaped, it can be linear. My anticipation is that, like most role-playing game campaigns, if you follow the same group of characters through the same structure, you're going to get a diamond-shaped narrative. You're going to get a highly focused beginning and a highly focused ending with a wide middle, right? Got that wide middle that I like. Whereas some games, like what we consider to be like a railroad style of GMing is very much like a line. There's no widening or narrowing. It's all like you do this, then you do this, then you do this. So the idea here will be we want to create a game with a potentially with a thick middle, exactly. Where I tell them at the beginning, this is the premise, this is where you are, this is what's going on. And as they become more comfortable with their characters and with the universe and with the mechanics of the game, they're able to say, now we want to do these things. We thicken out the middle, and it may be cone shape, right? The game may continue to be broader and broader and broader, or it may narrow back down near the end. So I got to talk about, and we got to look into kind of what tools the game gives us, and then we have to acknowledge and understand in what ways am I using Stars Without Number as it is designed, and in what ways am I fighting with Stars Without Number, right? In what ways am I saying the game's core premise is this, but I am doing that? How far apart are this and that? And to what degree am I shooting myself in the foot, right? Like at some point, having these kinds of conversations about your GM prep versus the game that you're playing can lead you to a place where you realize like, oh shit, like this is the wrong game. Now, I absolutely want to play Stars Without Number. So for me, that analysis, that look at like, and it's ongoing, right? It's like a relationship. I have a relationship with the game and I don't want to violate the tenets of that relationship. I have agreed that we are going to play Stars Without Number, and I'm allowed to adjust that relationship to make sure that me and the players are happy, but I don't want to say, okay, well, like we're going to not use Stars Without Number for this anymore, because that's a failing on my part. I've agreed part of the premise is this is the game. So if anything, this is a checks and balances on me, where if I go too far away, that I can pull back towards what Stars Without Number originally intends. So that's the plan. This is what I'm sort of setting out to do today. Really, I just want to feel like I'm prepared for the first session. And yeah, I could probably wing it, but there's the fun in that, right? I want to sit down and be able to kind of assess and analyze this stuff. So let's talk about what do the PCs do in this game, right? So in Stars Without Number, what is the game about? And to answer that question, we can look at Stars Without Number, right? Let me make it a little bigger so you can actually read it. So in Stars Without Number, in the game itself, we are called out to understand by Kevin's writing some things that we need to know about how to play this game. So we need to know that our characters, this is really important, right? This is what players need to know. This is a really important bit to just say, like, when you play this game, this is what you got to know. I assume, and we'll talk about how it might do this or not, I assume that Kevin, as a decent game designer, is going to reward us for reinforcing the things that it claims, right? We're not going to get Vampire the Masqueraded here, in that the game is going to tell us one thing, and then the mechanics are going to flip us the bird and then turn into a wolf and run away, right? So we'll see how that goes. So what we need to know, if we were to play this game by default, is that we are adventurers in the year 3200, a dweller among the scattered worlds of a great human diaspora. For whatever reason, you've decided to leave your old life behind and take up a starfaring existence, daring perils, seeking new frontiers in search of glory, riches, or their own personal ambitions. Okay, so that seems about right. okay? When the game refers to adventurer, it just means someone that's going out into the world and getting into dangerous situations. That sounds like we're on premise there. For whatever reason, the reason is you're not just like hanging out at home being rich nobles. Like, you have personal reasons, each of you, for joining the crew of this Crux ship to go out into the world. This is going to be reflected in your goals, right? So the overall premise is fine. You are personally unsettled, right? You're personally not capable of just staying put, or not allowed, or not in a position to, right? So you have this opportunity to go out into the world and seek out glory, riches, or your own personal ambitions. And this is what we're going to have to talk about with the players. Like, what do your players want? And honestly, if they don't have goals for the first session, that's okay, right? Because I'm going to give them a goal that is true for all of them, right? You're all part of the same Crux space operation, right? You're all out there doing your thing. So, some other useful information here. This is important, right? In actual play, you should be motivated to act and to act as part of a group, right? You've left behind your life. Torchbearer talks about this a little bit too, where it says like, you are not part of the regular world. You are something else. You are special. In Torchbearer, it's you're special because you suck. But in this, it's you're special because you believe in something bigger than yourself, or you believe in yourself more bigly than having a desk job will apply, right? Like, yes, Max's character could probably have a desk job, right? But he can't. For some reason, Officer Greaves, believes in his house. He hates the synths. I don't know. We'll figure that out. Why, Mr. Greaves, in whom I believes, why are you out there doing the thing? Why did you load your pistol this morning and get on that spaceship and go out to like solve crime? Do you have to? Are you paying someone back? We're going to learn that about the characters as we play, right? Why doesn't Anne's character have like a why doesn't she have like a regular job? Why isn't she a diplomat on a world somewhere, right? Why isn't she part of the sort of like embassy of the House Serpents, right? Etc. 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 So they need to be motivated to act, and then for me, part of my situation is to act as part of a group. So you are part of House Crux SVU, right? So you're out there doing the thing and solving the crimes. The world of Stars Without Number is dangerous, and characters who cringe from peril or insist on facing alone will find only boredom or an early grave, right? You're adventurers. You're not about that. So you'll have a goal from the start. These will be your personal goals. Part of that will be like how your personal goals interact with and clash with the overall goals. So the overall goal, and actually let's just write one for them. So like, here, let me jam all this down. So like, overarching situational goal premise, right? The premise of the game right now, at least for the first thing, is House Crux employs like they employ assets, I guess, which includes ships, personnel, etc., etc., teams of people, arms, etc., employs assets to patrol and maintain the rule of law throughout the systems of the Empire and beyond. You are a part of one of those asset teams, led by the captain of your ship. Your mandate is to bring to justice those who would shirk Imperial law. Right? So nice and clear, like this is the overarching goal of the first sort of situation, right? This is your jam. Yes, also punish. So they're mandated to like go out and I guess, so let's talk about what that might look like, right? So this is answering what do the PCs do. So like what does that look like? Definitely 100% very important right now. Hunting down synthetics, right? Illegal synthetics. And retiring them, right? Blade running, essentially, right? Hunting down and bringing to justice escaped, fleeing extant members of the former House Cygnus, right? So that kind of thing, right? Hunting down illegal synthetics and retiring them, hunting down and bringing to justice the people who made them, right? So this is kind of the post-World War II, like Nazi hunting, that kind of thing. Let's see. Bringing to justice tax evasion, right? Tax evaders on behalf of House Eridani. Let's see. What other things we do? Yeah, because like if you don't pay your taxes, House Eridani puts House Crux on you, and House Crux busts your ass. Retrieving stolen property, stolen Imperial property, ships, facilities, negotiating hostage release. Let's see, protecting diplomats and other Imperial VIP escort missions, right? What other things would they do? Yeah, rooting out and arresting, let's see, rebels, insurrectionists, political, bad guys, basically. Agitators, that's a good one. Yeah. What else do they do? Like, let's see here. Liaising with local militia, police forces, right? So like liaison, diplomacy, training, for enforcement and training. Is liaising's not a word? There it is. I knew it was a word. I've used that word before. Ooh, yeah. Enforcing non-human. Oh, this is a gross one. Peace treaty policies, right? Like busting uppity aliens. Ooh, yeah. That's a good one too. Enforcing serfdom, right? Like peasant uprising. And that can work with the liaising with like military guys. I basically don't want all of these just to be like find criminals and bust them. So yeah. And then also like, let's see here. Enforcing, enforcing is such a loose word. Working with Prism, Trilliant, and Acre officers, assets, friends, essentially, to protect intellectual property law, contacts, essentially, personnel. Yeah, that's a good one. Thank you. Busting the other kinds of pirates, right? Which also reinforces the like maintaining friendships, right? So this is like when a corporation pays the American government directly or indirectly to protect their assets, right? This is the CIA protecting like Del Monte in South America, right? That kind of thing. Ooh, yeah, that's another good one. Taking on Imperial. What is it called? They're not. Is it privateers? Basically, like bounty or privateer. What's the word for like legal piracy? Yeah, they're not really about investigating, I guess. Like corsairs. Yeah, it was privateer. Okay. Contracts. So this is like on your downtime, check the Imperial bounty boards because there's like criminals you can go after on your own personal time. Yeah. Okay, and yeah, investigating corruption throughout the Empire. So that's a thing too. But mainly, I think their jam is like right now, these are the two highest priority, and then everything else comes after that. But essentially, like anyone breaking the law is their jam, right? Yeah. Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, user required. So like also investigating Maltech. Investigating like Maltech violations. Yeah. Okay, cool. No. So heresy has nothing to do with it. We talked about this a little bit in the last stream. Heresy, capital H, is not something I want to like really focus on or care about. This is not the like Anabaptists, right? This isn't like there's a main line. This is a more modern, less ISIS style of religious operation. We don't blow up people for having the wrong religious beliefs until their religious beliefs also break the law. It doesn't matter if you believe in God or not. If you don't, you're an idiot because obviously God built this universe. They're space cops, not space inquisitors. So yeah, that's kind of the thing. And folks have asked, right? Like there's no, the high church, they'll handle this stuff if it gets dangerous on their own, but they don't do it in the sense of like, load up the drop pods, let's go and burn down a planet. Yeah, that's right. So this ship, it's like an FBI ship basically. And I think that there are occasionally a prisoner transport. That's a good one. Yeah. So like, I mean, shit, we've just created each and every one of these could be an arc of an episode, right? Yeah. Prisoner transport, investigating kidnapping, which I think we talked about as a thing, because they're nobles, right? Nobles get kidnapped all the time. Where was the hostage release? Same deal, right? And then inversely, securing Imperial assets, repossession, right? Repo men are a thing. Yeah. So these are all things that they can do. They're not explorers. They're not like a military unit, right? But they do have Aquilan, like, right, missing persons. Yeah. Totally. Investigating missing persons reports, kidnapping, missing persons. Like just shit that cops do, shit that the FBI gets up to, and I think that's gonna flex as we play the game. It's not clearly like 100% these things and 0% these other things, and we'll build it up. Yeah, cop shit like stepping on marginalized people and being the law, and we'll see. It's gonna be up to them. And you know me, like I'm going to thematically, what does it mean to be an authority? That's a big part of the game. Like if you are given the authority to do these things, then what is your responsibility to that authority? Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, Leo Tamer pointed one out. So securing illicit or rogue psychic assets. And this one would like via House Serpents, right? So this one would be dangerous because they may not have everyone that they need to do this stuff, but they might be in the right place at the right time. And then, yeah, it'll be up to them. So some of this will be external and some of this is internal, right? Some of this stuff is inside, right? Bringing to justice tax evaders, dealing with nobles that are problematic, versus external stuff, which is like punishing pirates, putting down the UPC, etc. No, they're in an organized hierarchy. Yeah, they belong to a noble house. Yeah, and I mean, I think this intellectual property law thing, yeah, they may run into some stuff with House Pixis, but that's not really like, it won't be like, you have illegal maps, we have to hunt you down. It's just, that's kind of how it goes. So yeah, it gives them a lot of breadth to act. Are they going to be good cops? Are they going to be bad cops? Are they going to be somewhere in between? Are they going to realize that being cops is problematic no matter what you do? Or are they going to make a difference out there? So this is the jam. So that, obviously we'll add to this list, but I feel like this is a pretty good understanding of what we can expect the characters to be doing in the universe. And I'm going to let them tell me what that might mean by way of their action. So I think we know what the PCs do, right? I think we understand. And then their own personal goals are going to come into play in relation to these things. So let's talk about, I guess we started talking about that. So sort of themes and concepts. So stuff that is important about the world. Imbalance of justice, right? Justice for all people are equal, right? But they're not. So like nobility versus serfs, free men versus indentured, synths versus real humans, aliens versus humans, plants versus zombies, Alien versus Terminator. So the imbalance of justice is absolutely a theme. If you deal with like police in the universe, justice is theoretically universal, but we've talked about the universe enough already. Nobles get better justice than everybody else. Nobles are more important. Let's do it. Let's lay out the hierarchy, right? The hierarchy. So, okay, at the top of the hierarchy, there is the nobles, but the nobility is broken down too, right? The nobility, you're more important if you are the imperial house, which doesn't exist right now. And then if you're a major house, there's the houses major, and then if you are the houses minor. So like law enforcement works such in this universe. Law enforcement works such that the higher up in this pyramid you are, the more important you are, the less likely justice is going to work against you, and the more likely it's going to work for you, right? The priority. This is the stack, right? House Crux is beholden first to the things at the top and last to the things at the bottom in terms of enforcing the law. Individual cops, right? Individual members of this team, individual PCs, individual people responsible for enforcing justice need to apply their own personal morals and ethics to these things. But this is how it basically shakes out in the courts of House Crux, right? So the nobility is at the top. And the nobility is shuffled into the imperial house is the most important. If you are the imperial house, you get better justice than everybody else. If you are a member of the houses major, if somebody from one of the houses minor has a beef with you, you have the weight of society working for you versus against you. So that's the nobility. Below that, I think, I think the next thing below the nobility are I don't know if it's serfs or I think it's corporates, right? This is the money talks, right? So acre directors, trillion ring executives in this order, acre directors, trillion ring executives. These are just like really rich, important things. Oh yeah. So the church exists sideways of the hierarchy. We'll talk about religion and how it interacts in a second. So acre directors, trillion ring executives, and I think like I think that's probably like, yeah, deathless, right? VPs, because they're very powerful. Yeah, and then Prism, yeah, Prism probably actually comes after. Now this isn't, again, like, this isn't like strict. This is just sort of generally, right? So as we understand how this kind of works, but like, you probably don't fuck with an acre director unless you are a noble, right? In which case you have a little bit more above you to work with you. So again, this isn't strict, but this is just kind of us getting an understanding of how this shit all sort of shakes out. So then there are free men, the free folk. And these are like rich farm owners, landlords, mayors. They're going to go in like rich farm owners, factory owners, serfs, right? The bourgeois. And then, yeah, like mayors, members of planetary government who aren't noble, right? So like, these are people who were serfs, but their serf job is to like run a planet or run a city on a planet, that kind of thing. So this isn't really like serfs here. They're not free men. They're later. So this is like rich farm owners, rich factory owners. They're technically serfs. They like technically belong to that, but you know, but they're not like, yeah, they're part of that class. Again, we're sort of understanding a sort of a yeoman. Thank you. Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. Well-off yeoman. And these are probably people that either highly placed assets of noble houses and are ranked accordingly. So like a really rich farm owner who belongs to House Fornax is going to be more important than a really rich farm owner who belongs to Serpens. You know what I mean? Like they structure out that way. In the sense that like, my dog is worth more than your dog, but they're both dogs. So this is where it gets kind of like confusing, because the bourgeoisie kind of semi-belong to people, but there's no slaves, so it's not a thing. Members of planetary government who are noble, landlords and other property owners, etc., right? Free men. This is where like money talks. But no noble or corporate attachment. These kinds of people tend to want to become nobles or become acre directors, right? Like that's their best way to move up that ladder. I think between the nobility and the corporates, we have this kind of like barrier of religious law, right? Where it's like you can't break through this line because this is where the church's power kicks in. There. So there's like the law here where it's very hard to move from one to the other. It's really easy to go down the hierarchy, but it's very hard to move up. That's the ceiling. That's the ceiling that God put in place. So that's the corporates. And then below them, we have like serfs, essentially, right? So these are everyone in the empire who belongs directly or indirectly to a house or acre, basically. I guess, or a corporate. These are the employees and workers of the sector and make up the vast majority of everyone, right? So this is most people are these. Most people are serfs. You probably belong to someone, you work someone else's land, etc. These are like soldiers in the they might be like, yeah, acre workers. Prism personalities, Trilliant workers, Deathless soldiers, and lower ranked officers, etc. And then basically everyone that like belongs. Yeah, so like this is like a low level personality that works for Prism. This is like newscasters, that kind of thing. You technically belong. Serf is like serf/employee, right? You belong to someone else. Yeah. So yes, in this case, if I were a member of the universe, I would be a Prism personality, which means I am a fucking serf. So if a noble has a problem with me, if an Acre director has a problem with me, if one of the VPs of the Deathless had a problem, I'm screwed. And then below the serfs, we have aliens, right? Actually, let's just lump this in here. Non-humans, right? So non-humans are synths, right? Synthetic humans, animals, alien life forms, like some criminals, depending on the crime. I guess serfs employees is also some criminals. Depending on the crime, you may still keep your, you know, your status. Other criminals are exiles. This is excommunicates, right? People who the church have been like, this is not a person anymore. The church is allowed to do that. The church is allowed to strip individuals of their humanity. The high church can point to a person and say, no, they have proven that they are no longer, they're not human. They are no longer part of the human race by way of their shit. They are out. This is excommunication. It's huge, it's significant, and they can use it on anyone. Like anybody they want. Right? So like they could if they wanted to, I guess anyone except the emperor. The emperor cannot be that cannot be laid upon them. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so synthetic humans, animals, alien life, some criminals. These are people with no rights at all. You are allowed to murder, abuse, kill, whatever you want. They're not people. They're like objects. They have no peopleness. So that's a thing. I guess, yeah, I mean, I guess if we want to increase this here, we can go like the emperor is above everybody. Then the nobility. And then outside of this, and then this is like all the rights. And then none of the rights down at the bottom. So the idea here is that the justice flows downhill, right? So like the people at the bottom are the recipients of punishment, and the people at the top are the people that cause the punishment. This is unlike there's no one in our universe in Acheron Row. There's no one in this sector that thinks this is not the case. No one has any illusions that this is what it's like. We understand this is how it goes. No one is going to be surprised when justice is applied in this way. If you're a serf and you have a problem about a noble, you have to get another noble to fight for you, right? If you want justice, justice has to be across the board. Now, if you are a serf of one of the houses major and you have a problem with a noble of one of the houses minor, you're supposed to report to the noble that owns you, and then they can punish that house's minor noble for you, right? So if you're a Fornax serf and there is a Serpens noble, say, you know what, let's I gotta stop picking on nobles. Say a Pixis comes to your sector and, I don't know, runs over your daughter with their space motorcycle. You cannot complain about that directly. If you go to House Crux and say, excuse me, this Pixis ran over my daughter, they're going to be like, I don't care. No one cares about that. Forget you. But if you go to your lord and you're like, Lord Fornax, please, a Pixis ran over my daughter. And Lord Fornax goes to House Crux and says, yo, this House Pixis motherfucker has been running over my serfs. That's how justice gets applied. So this will not be a game, at least initially, about raising up the peasants, right? This is not about that. This is about upholding the status quo, because that's what police forces do. So to that end, our players are enforcers of the status quo. Now, you, as the faction turn, maybe you can change the status quo. Maybe this isn't true. Maybe we can alter this. But for now, this is where it is, and this is how it's going to happen. So political stability flows. This is what the medieval would have called the Great Chain of Being. I think that's... Yeah, so the Great Chain of Being is a hierarchical structure of all matter in life. If you haven't read this Wikipedia article, if you don't remember this from your Neoplatonism, Middle Ages, whatever, read it. Absolutely read it. It's a literal understanding of medieval life in which God, the angels, humanity, animals, plants, and minerals are structured, and it's composed of hierarchical links with subdivisions. It's a whole thing. It's very inspiring to me, and I think that you should check it out. So definitely look up the Great Chain of Being. I guess technically, if we want to throw in the church's thoughts about this, I guess we could, here, let me change the text color. The church believes, let's use purple. The church believes God is here, right? God is the only thing above the emperor. Then there's the emperor, and then down here, there's the church, right? But the church is sort of lateral. It's the Church of Latter-day Saints. The church is sort of lateral to the hierarchy because they exist sort of semi-outside of it, because they don't really... They're connected to it, but they're not like a part of it. And then if we want to throw in here, obviously above God is the guild. The guild has all the rights in the world because justice can't touch them. Because what's Crux gonna do? Shoot me with your gun? Like, there's nothing Crux can do to the guild. If the guild turns an entire planet into Jello, the enforcement ability is such that there's nothing anyone can do. Like, if a Pixis runs over your daughter with their motorcycle, you can say something about that. But if you go to the cops and you're like, a hurricane knocked over my farm, go arrest that hurricane, what the fuck are they gonna do? So, in a way, this whole structure, you're lucky that the guild is so small and so fickle and so inwardly focused. Now, yeah, they're insurance policies. Ask House Eridanus about this. Insurance policies absolutely exempt active guild, right? That's just how it goes. The guild is basically a force of nature. Yeah. Can't do shit about the Q continuum. Arrest that earthquake. Exactly.